It's the BFF show. I'm Brendan.
I'm Franco.
It was a holiday whisper intro, Franco, because the holidays are here. It's a getting quiet around our general areas of work and play. The streets are all abuzz with children dreaming of the presents that Santa Claus or parents or people are going to give them. Do you feel the holiday spirit, Franco?
I do. I felt it probably since Thanksgiving, 'cause that's when Christmas
Oh.
music really started to loop. Uh, I'm really into it. I enjoy the holiday season. It's always nice.
I ate a lot at a holiday work party, so that was fantastic. I enjoy the
Oh,
eating part quite a bit. Yeah, man, it's gonna be fun. But first, maybe this will be fun. But this is something you've got to get through your holiday cheer, Franco, because you sir have a race. So give us a race update. How's the training going? Last time we met, your foot you were under bed rest for a while, trying to get your foot back. How'd that go, and what's the update?
so the foot's back to 100%. Well, not 100%, but 100% I can ignore it, which is
Yeah,
like most good things in life, right? I ran 12 miles, well, about 10 miles yesterday. It was about 30 degrees here, so not quite mimicking the 0 degree, but still. I did a full load, it's a 20-pound pack, and it went pretty well.
nice.
Now I have to do that 6 times over to finish the race, but it was a good first go. I do have a funny story, actually, which
Yeah,
is new to you about my run. So while I was running down the path, there's like houses up against the path here. So like the
yeah.
huge, like big, I'm sure they're hundreds of thousands of dollars houses. And there was an old woman like shoveling her house walk. And this is a long house walk,
Yeah.
like probably the entire size of your apartment because you live in a small apartment in LA. Um, and so like I ran by and she like gave me this funny face like I'm exhausted. And I kept running and I was like, I feel really bad. So I turned around and went back to help her shovel the plowway. And at
Nice.
first, she thought I was her neighbor, and then realized I wasn't. She probably felt a little bad about inviting me onto her property. Uh, but so then I shoveled the plowway, which didn't take me that long at all.
Okay.
And she insisted I came inside for a cookie, which
Oh.
would be an adorable ending to the story. Unfortunately, we went inside, and she's like, "Oh, I need to tell my husband you're here." And my first thought was,
Uh-oh.
"Well, why were you?" And she told me she was 87 years old. At 87, the one shoveling the walkway when your husband's inside.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, he's in the shower." And I was like, "All right, that's a little weird." And when we came inside, she like yelled at me. She's like, "Honey, I have a friend with me. I'm giving him cookies." And I was like, "This is a weird start to this story." So I was like, all right, whatever. And she's like, we'll just wait downstairs. So I'm standing in what I imagine is their basement, family entertainment room, room.
Okay. I'm
With
fascinated
also
by
like
this story, by the
the
way.
trophies and everything else, right? And so I'm
It's
standing
disturbing.
there and I'm hearing this woman upstairs like stumbling around. She cannot find whatever she was trying, the cookie or
Yeah.
cookies. So like 5 minutes go by. I'm just like standing there. Like, this is super awkward. I'm in my full running gear, so I have like a baklava on. Do you know what baklava is?
Yeah, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
mask, right? Oh
Yeah,
yeah, the
this thing.
full
I'm
yeah.
wearing this inside of a home.
Yeah.
So I start
That's
looking around the
amazing. You
cellar.
didn't take it off? Why didn't you take
I
it
mean, I pulled
off?
it down, but it was still like,
Yeah, yeah, okay, good. I thought you went in with the full mask.
no, no. Don't want to scare the 87-year-old into a heart attack. So I start looking around the room, and I realize this entire cellar is filled with firearms. Like antique firearms, new firearms, guns in cases. And then like another 5 minutes go by. We're at 10 minutes now, and I'm sitting here, and I'm like, the husband's going to get out of the shower at some point, is going to stumble into this room and shoot me. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm going to die literally in this house for shoveling a plowway. And I was like, all right, well, then 15 minutes go by. And finally the woman's like, well, I found banana bread. And I'm like, that will do. Just get me out of this basement. And she comes down the stairs, mind you, 87 years old, holding a banana bread in one hand and the knife in the other.
Oh my God.
And it's not like it's a stairway with railings. It's like the basement stairwell.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And my mind immediately went to, this woman's going to trip down the stairwell, fall on this knife, and now I'm alone in the cellar with a dead body and a bunch of guns.
Yeah, that's
This is how my
insane.
life ends. Luckily, it was all right. She cut me a piece of bread, and I got the hell out of there. but it was a very terse 20 minutes while she tried to find this cookie and everything else. But yeah, so that was my run story. And I called you immediately afterwards. I was a little shaken up. It was a little uncomfortable. I'm
Yeah,
happy I
you
helped
didn't
her.
talk to me about that. I saw that I was at work and I saw you called and I was like, no voicemail, and then you didn't reference it at all.
Yeah. So 2 parts to the lesson here. One,
Yeah.
you probably should never walk into a stranger's house. My
No, I'm surprised you did.
but she was 87, so. 2, if you're 87, you probably shouldn't let a dude that you don't know in a baklava into your house with a 20-pound pack, by the way. Like, I looked pretty transient at that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we both erred on that. So, if something bad happened, we both, I guess, mutual fault. But yeah, so that's my race update, and that's my race story. Everything's going well. We'd love to have more donations. The donation thing will have been on the entire time I told the story, so
Sweet.
please go donate.
I don't have time to process, but I know we need to keep moving. But I'm going. I feel like we should that's the show. I know it's only like 6 minutes, but that was like an insane story, and now I'm nothing that's coming after is gonna top that. But we're gonna have to power through because we have an obligation to Amp Premiere.
Yeah.
To the
Otherwise,
good
it'll just
5
be
or
Amp
so
regular.
of you who watch us on Amp Premiere.
Yeah.
So let's do a quick fantasy football update. I am completely in a tailspin. My update is it's all crap at this moment. I am fighting for 8th place or 7th place.
7th place.
7th.
Yeah.
Everybody that showed up last week did not show up at all this week, and I switched them out, of course, because that's fantasy logic. And now it doesn't matter. But you, sir, all praises to you. You are in the championship match versus Mr. Chris Walsh, aka Team 12, the man who had didn't even bother to change his team name. Just went with the default name and it worked. So how do you feel about your chances going into championship weekend?
So I'm definitely limping in. I lost
Yeah.
Antonio Brown and Hunter Henry
Yeah.
this past week. So it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
But as we learned last week, Todd Gurley going off for 40 and Kareem Hunt putting up 38, it's really all happenstance. So I'm just going to put my best lineup forward, hope for some Hail Marys, and go from there.
All right, but we'll give a final update very soon on the next show.
Yep.
As who won, and maybe if we can get the man to jump in at some point, we can do a Google Hangout where he's in the room with us and see if the champion Chris Walsh or the champion Franco is there. Either way, maybe we can get Walshy on. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to figure out how to get on. He's got a baby too, so I think that there's a slim. It's less than 0 that he's actually going to be able to do it, but we'll try. We'll try to book him. Let's get right into the NFL week that was. We'll start with let's start with sort of a bit of a controversial subject that relates back to our conversation from last week or so, if you were watching regularly, about Rob Gronkowski and his hit that earned him a 1-game suspension that we've discussed. And the quick recap is essentially it was very much an intentional hit, and he only got 1 game. But you have Thomas Davis, who plays for the Carolina Panthers, who did essentially a crack block on Devontae Adams of the Packers, and earned a 2-game suspension. So, Franco, walk me through this and explain to me and to the audience what, in your mind, was the biggest difference and why you're not happy with this at all.
Okay, well, first, let's undress it from the top. Rob Gronkowski just didn't do a hit.
Yeah.
Rob Gronkowski assaulted somebody after a play was over and they were on the ground. Imagine if, in your casual walk to help somebody plow their driveway, you decided, oh, they're leaning over, let me just jump on the back of their head and drive it into the ground. You'd probably be in jail. So let's call it an assault from now on. So basically what it is Rob Gronkowski's play was out of the play itself. So the play had ended, the whistle blown, he'd been touched down, and then out of anger or whatever the hell is going through that dude's head, testosterone, broness, maybe some jungle juice, I don't know. Rob Gronkowski decided he wanted to inflict damage on another player. Whereas Thomas Davis's play was a spur-of-the-moment play. There was a interception, and then in the run back to the interception, Thomas Davis attempted to block Devontae Adams. Now, did he lead with the crown of his helmet? Yes. He probably shouldn't have ducked his head, and he definitely deserves a 1-game suspension. I agree with that. Where the problem lies is that one is a very intentional attempt to hurt someone else or an assault, and the other one is in the field of play. I don't see why they shouldn't at least be equal at one game, and I think it's absolutely insane that Rob Gronkowski's only got one game now that we've established even a block during the course of a game is a 2-game suspension. So that's undressing it from the top to bottom. And then what are your views on it?
It's the same. I think it's one of those where it gets to the point where you see all these things, and this does lead a little bit into our next two topics, but I don't know what they're looking at. And I don't understand, and instead of talking about the game, we're talking about the officiating. We're talking about decisions that are being made. To me, it seems like, again, like you described it perfectly. It makes sense how you described it, and the way that Rob Gronkowski was treated, like it was just a typical average play, which we all know it wasn't based on the footage. Only gets one game, and this guy only gets two. And I'll be honest, I missed that part and who was involved. And I think my point in that is, I think because it's a guy that perhaps is not at that upper echelon of NFL superstars, quote unquote, and I'm using their terms because I think you and I also disagree with who deserves to be in there and who's actually in it. And I think that's where, obviously, to me, this is where a fine example of someone getting preferential treatment for sure over a player that, you know what, the guy's not selling jerseys, so I think that they're going to levy the general fine and or punishment that they would of any NFL player, except for these guys that are in the elite status and protected.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple ways to address it. There's one, and I know we've harped on this a few times.
Right.
It's kind of a race thing. Rob Gronkowski's white from Massachusetts. Thomas Davis is from Atlanta, and he's African American. If you don't think that plays a part in it, then you're not paying attention to our current political environment, and you're not paying attention to our current society. It does play a part of it. Rob Gronkowski is a heathen. He's disrespectful. He's bad for the game. But because he's a bro and he fits that model of what's marketable, he gets the pass a lot of times, and he doesn't deserve it. He's a dirtbag, and he's bad for football. And here's the second part of it. The NFL has used the argument that Rob Gronkowski is not a prior offender in this particular environment. The problem with that argument is that Thomas Davis is a Man of the Year candidate, I think, 3 of the last 7 years. So he's not a prior offender either, and he's very much arguably a higher character than Rob Gronkowski because, you know, we didn't see him on a stage like shirtless ever losing a Super Bowl, and he's not hosting his own booze cruise. So really what the problem is the NFL hasn't established any sort of rule for this. I appreciate they're trying to legislate hits out of the game. The way they're doing it, though, is reactionary. This happened, so we need to react. This sounded bad, so we need to react. Instead of establishing this is how it works, here's our base suspension, and then let's work backwards from there. They're instead running amok and just kind of laying out rules as it goes forward. And that's really what we'll transition to, because every other problem we had this week is something similar to that.
Yeah.
So please transition.
I will transition into, there were 2 big plays, and I'll run through them. Jesse James, tight end of the Steelers, for all intents and purposes, looked like Franco was a catch and it was a touchdown. However, when they started reviewing the footage, there is a split-second moment where the ball appears to leave his hands, hit the ground, and then come immediately back up. It was reversed. There was no touchdown, and then a very odd play by Ben Roethlisberger that threw right in the middle of the pack. When for all intents and purposes, again, even the most average fan of the NFL would know this is obviously a fade route to the back of the end zone to make sure that no one but your guy has a chance at it. This was a straight shot right into the middle of a group of defenders. It gets blocked. That block pushes it, literally passes it right into the hands of a Patriots defender. Game is over. Then you had on Sunday night, against the Raiders, you had a very crucial downage call that was decided by a slip of paper by the ref. And I've never seen this before in my years of watching football. Again, we've documented, you've been watching longer. I don't think you've ever seen something like that, where there were 2 egregious things. One was that the chain appeared to be even bent back more than straight forward. And then when you put the piece of paper in, there's no point in doing that. It's either touching that end of the chain or it's not. The piece of paper just adds more credibility to the fact that perhaps they didn't make it, or it just I don't understand what was going on with any of this. It just seemed like this weird arbitrary rule that cost, for all intents and purposes, the Raiders the game, although the Raiders are terrible, so they may not have even made it out anyways. But again, you have this two big plays, Franco. One of which in that Steelers Patriots game could have decided home field advantage. We need to see how it shakes out. And then you have the Raiders and the Cowboys, who are the Cowboys miraculously in the playoffs. The Raiders are all, for all intents and purposes, out of it because I don't see them making it. But again, if you have that swing one of two ways, or you have that straightening of that chain, perhaps that means the Raiders do get that first down, and then they get the opportunity to at least tie it at that point. So I know that was a lot that I just said, Franco. So unpack it for me. What were your thoughts?
With the Steelers play, so I'm not as up in arms about it as
Yeah.
everybody else is, just because we've seen the precedent set, especially the Calvin Johnson catch falling to the ground, the Des Bryant in the playoffs catch. And I think had Jesse James caught the ball, taken a step, and then lunged for the end zone, and then the ball bobbled when it hit the ground, it would have been a touchdown. Unfortunately, he caught the ball and in one movement lunged for the end zone, meaning that by rule, even though the rule's dumb, as you are falling to the ground after the catch, you must maintain possession and survive the ground.
Yeah.
So by deciding to not take the extra step and lunge forward, he basically made it all one motion of a catch, and on the way to the ground did not survive the ground. So within the scope of the rules, it was a very good call because it fits the rule. Now, is that rule kind of stupid? Yes. Should it have a clause involved in it where it says a football move accounts or equates to a step? Because he did do a football move. He caught it, brought it down, and then lunged. That should be the rule going forward. But as far as the rules go, it works. Now, the Raiders-Cowboys play, I have no idea what rule that was. So two parts of it. One, I think the Cowboys had the first down, regardless. And the reason why I think that is because, like you said, there was some shenanigans with the chain. One of them being that when they put the post down, it's supposed to be up and down. The ball is supposed to either come here or not. They had the posts leaning back. And the ball was somewhat right here. So it was already messed up anyway. Then he pulls the paper out. And I don't think it was for any other reason other than to show the TV camera that the ball was past the line. I don't think it was any rule. I don't think it had anything to do with any subset or him making the decision. I think that was him making a point to show the national viewers, to avoid trouble, that it was past the line. Because he kind of slid it down the pipe and then hit the top of the ball because the ball was over the line. I don't think it affected the game. I think it was a first down. I think it's just another monumental misstep by the NFL.
Yeah.
And how was someone not yelling at that headset, put the note card back to your pocket and just make the call? Like, you have four guys, get on your knees, all of you, and look at the line, but don't break it out piece of paper.
And why even bother with the New York headquarters that they keep mentioning that they have a bunker where they look at all of the replay footage? It's like then it's coming down to a piece of paper. That it just blew my mind. I think here's the thing that makes me nervous, Franco, is that we've seen all this stuff happen in the regular season, and you've seen the ear that it's raised, and the anguish, and the absolute and incredulous nature that fans have. I am terrified of this happening in a playoff game, because then all hell's going to break loose, because that's going to be a stadium full of people that are about 100 times more invested in the outcome of a game than perhaps the Oakland Raiders fan base was at that particular moment. But that's where this is one of those where, like, is this a precursor or are they working it out? I have a feeling, given the way this entire year has gone, it's a precursor to some shenanigans that's going to happen. That's my guess.
Yeah, I think if we're going to predict officially, the BFF show stance is that shenanigans will occur.
I expect
that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the only saving grace is that the NFL hybrids staff for the playoffs based on who's the best performance during the year. So I think it'll be slightly less shenanigans, but I think there will be shenanigans.
Over under 2 games with wonky calls, Franco, in the playoffs. What are you taking?
Either at or over. I definitely won't go under.
I'm gonna go over as well. I'm gonna go far over. Like I should have set the line at like 4, because I think we're gonna see a lot more of it. But let's wrap up the show with the big thing that you and I both did this past weekend. We saw Star Wars: The Last Jedi. So this is a point of the show where I will say it loud and clear. We are going to talk some spoilers. We're going to talk some endings, some beginnings. It's going to get weird. So if you don't want to hear it, turn it off now.
All right.
We're
Spoilers.
back. Spoilers. Franco, what did you think?
Um, I don't know how to express how I feel. I kind of walked out of the theater like, I don't know how I feel about this. On one hand, I think it was a well done movie. It was shot beautifully. It had the right tones. It was well acted. And even the bad jokes weren't all that bad. It wasn't like Marvel where some of the jokes just missed completely. So I thought it was a really well done movie. I thought it was good. Now, was it a good Star Wars movie? I'm not sure. I think it might have missed the mark in staying with the ethos and the feel of the franchise. I think that's why I feel the way I feel about it. I think I enjoyed the movie as for movie's sake, and had you switched out names of characters and different mythology, I would have been really into it. But given that what I was expecting and how tied in emotionally I am to that whole idea, I don't know how I feel. How do you feel?
I'm glad you feel the same way because I think this was one of those movies where I felt like an obligation to really love it before I went, and then when I didn't, I felt bad about it a little bit because I think you're right. It's a good movie. I don't think it's a great Star Wars film. Uh, I didn't mind the humor with Poe in the beginning of the film where he's making fun of the general over the radio. I thought it was a weird humor moment where Kylo Ren is shirtless and Rey says, "Would you mind putting a shirt on?" Because there's no humor in that relationship up to that point. And that was like a throwaway line that I felt like, did someone punch that up and say, hey, we need to add some levity, so this is a good moment. Let's put him in a weird girder and have him hanging out with no shirt. So that part I didn't like at all because it took me out of the film. And I think in general, like you said, the overall mythology that we've collectively invested in over the course of 30 plus years, almost the last film, a lot of the things they're like, oh, do you like Admiral Snoke? Well, we don't care about that guy. He's dead. Ray's parents, no mystery. They're trash people. It was just, again, I was like, oh, he's just completely pooping on all of the history of Star Wars in terms of even Luke being like the Jedi are pretty much dumb. They were terrible and they need to go. And it seemed a little off brand, I guess, to go back to your point about it being not feeling like a Star Wars film.
Yeah, I feel like he walked the balance of not wanting to give fans too much lip service because the
Yeah.
last movie got crapped on for being too much of a callback to the original films. But instead of finding that like medium area, he overshot the
Yeah.
war.
I
And in some ways it really worked. And again, we talk spoilers, but like with the grand scheme of Rose and Finn breaking into the Star Destroyer or Dreadnought and offsetting the system and it not working, that was a good plot point because every other Star Wars movie has had like one or two people suddenly save the day. So I think it was a great callback to have that start happening and then not actually come to fruition. Because I think it kind of played with your emotions. So that was a good way.
yeah.
A bad way
I
is
think
when you
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it's when you start like inventing force powers for force ghosts and bringing Yoda back and
Yeah.
making Luke disillusioned, even though he was the only hope when we left Return of the Jedi, and he was still the hope in Force Awakens, and then changing his character completely different. And then the worst for me is how do you waste the opportunity, particularly with everything that's happening with Carrie Fisher passing away, to have the original staff, like the cast together for one last time. We got
Right.
2 seconds of Luke and Leia, we got 1 second of Chewie and Leia, and that's all we're ever gonna get. I mean, that's it. So that
Yeah,
kinda sucked too.
yeah, that was a bummer. I think the thing that bothered me, and I get your point about the plan failing. I would have bought that had they not inserted a second plan that Poe didn't know about and that they were keeping him from that negated completely the whole purpose of Finn leaving the star. Right? Am I wrong in thinking that? Because I feel like if it had
Yeah.
failed and then they said simply, you know what, a last ditch effort, we're gonna blow out everybody through the escape pods. But instead it was the escape pods were the thing the whole time. And I was like, then why did you even send them? Why even bother unless it was just to get them on that ship?
I mean, to be fair, they didn't know about Finn going, but at the same time, how are you not telling Poe who
Yeah.
was I know he was demoted to captain or whatever, he was your commander at one point. I think you should at least communicate the base idea to him. So
That's how I
you already
felt.
know he's impulsive as hell. The entire first movie was Poe being impulsive and doing things. So tell him what you're doing so you can avoid him flying off the handle. But yeah, there were some points in it that plot was not strong. They did nail, I think, the tone and the feel of a Star Wars movie. I think they just
Right.
missed sometimes on plot points.
I also felt it was. I know we got about maybe a minute or two left. Too long. It was too long. I felt like it should have ended in the throne room after they battle out. That was like a great ending scene, and then it was like, oh no, there's another half hour of just stuff. And I think again, it was good, but part of me was like, oh, I wish they reversed the order. Have them go to the Salt Planet, and then let's have that final battle because that was really awesome when they fight all the guards. That was cool, and then I felt like we didn't get much of a payoff besides, Luke sacrificing himself. I know, but again, I just felt sort of like emotionally. I was like, the moment passed. I feel like this is interesting, but we don't have that epic battle that I thought we would end on.
Yeah, I could see that. I think maybe you would have saved the Luke sacrifice for the next movie
Right.
and have it end with, Rey thinking Ben's back and then Ben, in fact, not being back. And I know we only have one more minute, but I'll leave it at what a wasted opportunity with Snoke. I know that
Yeah.
he needed to die to kind of progress the story and make make Kylo Ren the big bad guy. Just, you could have given us something as to how
Right.
there was this being of immense power floating around for all these years, and we never acknowledged it to this point. So,
Right.
just something, Again, fan service isn't always the best thing, but in that one instance, they probably should have given us a little fan service.
Franco, what'd you learn today?
Rob Gronkowski is still a douchebag, and I hate him, and I think he's bad for the NFL. And my review of Star Wars falls somewhere in the two thumbs, canted slightly upwards, not quite down, this position. Yeah. What'd you learn?
I learned that you and I are on the same page. This is sort of the same. I kind of left like, huh? Like that's my score. And I also learned that you should never trust old ladies again, Franco. Don't be kind to them.
Yeah, not wandering into an old lady's house ever again. Learn my lesson.
For the BFF show, I'm Brendan.
I'm Franco, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.